Good morning. Welcome to Conversations with Peter Boghossian. I'm here with Vaishnavi. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, and you're in India,
Yes, I'm in the south of India, Tamil Nadu.
and you speak English,
Tamil.
obviously, or this would be a very short conversation. And you speak Tamil.
Yeah, I do
But
speak a few other Indian languages as well, but yeah, Tamil is my native language.
that always amazes me. Like when I meet people from India, they're speaking like three, four, five languages that are completely different from
Yeah.
completely different from each other, and they're just like that's just amazing to me. Uh,
It's just the way you grow up in communities with children speaking different languages and you just pick it up without even realizing it. And then when you grow up, you watch movies from other states and, you just get used to it.
And Bollywood is becoming quite a thing. I've seen on Netflix they have a lot of Bollywood. Um,
Yeah, Bollywood's just
a
one
lo-
industry. We've got industry in every state, every single state.
how many states are there in India?
Yeah.
Lots.
You're testing me on this. Lots. More
No,
than the
that lots is
states,
good
there are
enough.
more languages. More than the states, there are more languages and more industries and more people interested in pursuing cinema as a way of an aspirational quotient. Just go into
And
the
and
movies and
and we've seen some of your clips. We've seen some of the stuff you do. We're going to get into that. But before we do, what so you self-describe as a feminist, is that right?
yeah, sure, of course I do.
And- yeah. Okay. Or a radical feminist, which is closer to your what is a feminist, and what's the difference between a radical feminist and a feminist?
Well, I suppose feminism should mean radical feminism because otherwise there is no point to it. But feminism, according to me, is to believe that women have fundamental rights and women exist in skin and flesh and with thoughts and intellect and everything just like men do, and they deserve equal rights just like men do. And radical feminism goes a step higher, or rather deeper, where it goes back to the roots and it connects you to the very basis of how women are connected together through their oppression in the form of caste, in the form of religion, in the form of class, in the form of language, skin color, educational qualifications, and things like that. So radical feminism kind of brings it back to the roots, or the fundamental level of the essence of being female as a sex class connected together with your sisters. And I think I associate myself more closely to that than any other facets of feminism, like the liberal feminism or the garden variety feminism, where it's nice and cozy to call yourself feminist when you're on, I don't know, some big show, and then the rest of the time you're just pandering to patriarchy.
Okay, so there's a lot there to. I want to go slow and linger on this because it's important. Is there a difference in feminism in an Indian context versus a U.S. or Anglosphere context?
I suppose the feminism remains the same everywhere. It's just the kind of categories with which women are separated, or the shackles with which women are tied, is different in India when compared to, say, the West. Because over there you have, well, at least on paper, you have certain freedoms that you can enjoy, which we can't over here. So those shackles are different.
Like what? Like what?
I suppose you don't have, um, I don't know, 20 rapes a day, perhaps, or more. Um,
20,
that
20
happens in,
rapes a day?
yeah, and that's just one example, right? And your access to a clean toilet, access to water, access to fundamental rights like being able to uh, vote, being able to have good education and things like that. Those things are all taken for granted in the West, but you don't have access to all of those things in India. Not a woman in rural India sitting in, I don't know, Jharkhand somewhere who doesn't even have a toilet in the house. She has to travel like, I don't know, 3 or 4 kilometers to relieve herself early in the morning before the sun comes up. And she has to run back up before the men start hovering over there, and then they are subject to sexual violence over there, and then there are snakes because it's a forest, things like that. You don't really pay any uh, thought to it because you take certain things like the luxuries of having um, access to a clean toilet for granted. But it's not the case when in different countries things are very bleak. I mean, I shouldn't be complaining myself because I have all the privileges too. I have the access to education. I have access to clean um, toilet, for example, and several other things. But the reality is, when you talk about India as a whole, a large majority is still under what we have now defined as ultra poverty. And after COVID, things got worse, and women are at the receiving end of the absolute worst of what comes with poverty. That's just like everywhere else.
Well, oh, okay, there's just so much here, and I just want you to know I'm by no means an expert in anything India. What makes radical feminism better than liberal feminism?
I don't know. I suppose we are able to define what a female is, and we're able to, by defining what
What
a
do you
female is, we are able to categorically talk about the oppressions that females face. And it becomes easier. When you can't have a definition for words, when you can't have meanings for words, what are you even fighting for? Radical feminism defines female or woman as an adult human female. Liberal feminism muddles it up. Liberal feminism says anybody who identifies as it or feels like it can be a woman. Once you do that, it's a slippery slope, because take my country, for example. I have it's just so black and white for me. You're female or you're male. That's it. There's no debate about pronouns. There's no debate about anything for me. I'm pretty hardline on this. And I'm just growing hardline, more and more hardline as the days progress. Um, Liberal feminism is just in its nature to be liberal and accommodating and, be all welcoming. Thinks that it is a good thing to allow a male who says he's a female to be part of their circle or as one of them. Radical feminism does not do that. Radical feminism doesn't hate on anybody. These men that claim to be women, they can do whatever they want away from us, is all radical feminism is saying.
Okay, again, I want to go. I want to slow down and make sure that I understand everything. What's the difference between a female and a woman? I have two questions. The first is, what's the difference between a female and a woman? And so often I've found, and occasionally people complain in the comments about this, but you just cannot listen to them. You have to define your terms. We have to talk about what we're talking about.
Oh, sure.
People
Female is a
people
sex
don't want to
class.
do it. They think it's pedantic, but it's indispensable for any conversation. What's the difference
Yes,
between a
absolutely.
female and a woman?
Female is a sex class. It's based on your gonads. It's a sex dimorphistic term. You're female or you're a male. Female is anybody who has eggs, the large gametes. Male is anybody who has the smaller gametes, etc. Woman is just a term that has, I suppose, been used to, like the word gender has come up. We had sex, the category of sex already, which meant male or female, and then we had gender for no reason. It is apparently the same thing, but it is also not. I suppose woman is just another way of is just another word. It's not synonymous because sex class has a completely different purpose. But I suppose a woman could be defined as an amalgamation of the sex class as well as certain cultural aspects or certain outwardly aspects of things, of being feminine or being what is construed as female from wherever you belong, in the place
Okay.
where you belong.
Okay. So we recently had someone on the show who participates in gender ideology. I think that's a fair. Would you say it's a fair way to characterize the position, or she's okay? She's a gender abolitionist. So no. Okay. So how would? Well, anyway, we recently had someone on the show, who I was just trying to make sure that I tried to characterize his position in the most charitable way possible. He defines the definition of a woman is someone who lives up to a social construct that is typically associated with phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors. Let me read that again. Someone who lives up to a social construct that is typically associated with phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors. What do you
Behavior
think of
does not
that?
make you. No, I don't think that's I don't think it matters how you live your life. It doesn't change the fact that you're either female or male. You could wear anything, you could live in whatever stereotypes that you want to uphold, or wear whatever. It doesn't change the fact that you're female. When you're dying, you'd still be female. Even they dig you up 100 years later and check you, you'd still be female. So it's got no difference between it doesn't matter how you're appearing to the society. What matters is what sex class you are, which is either male or female. And then, of course, there is this, this confusion that people often like to keep bringing up, especially the liberal feminists. But what about the intersex? Intersex doesn't mean in between sex, right? It is still male and female who have certain disorder in sexual development. That doesn't change the fact that, they're not in between two sexes. They're still males with DSD, females with DSD. So there is still just the two sex class. So it doesn't matter.
Okay.
If I'm wearing a shirt, doesn't make me a male, for example. My short hair doesn't make me a male.
Okay. So there's a lot to talk about here, obviously. Did you at all see the Eric Weinstein conversation on just recently? He said something about it was posted on X about gender. I think should we watch that read real quick or no? Or is it too long? How long is it? 4 minutes? I'd like to play you a little clip, if it's okay, and have you comment on this, because this has caused quite a hullabaloo. Do you have that expression in India?
Not really. We don't use it, but I understand the word.
Oh, okay. Sometimes I say things and people look at me like, what is this guy talking about? I'd like to watch this, and I'd like to have a conversation about it. And let us know if you can hear it on your end. Okay, Reed.
Like, I won't say there are only two genders.
Hold on.
Why?
Whenever anything goes wrong, this is always Reed's fault. So you can get mad at Reed.
I won't say there are only two genders.
Why?
Because it's not true.
In humans?
Yeah.
Two genders or two sexes?
Well, first of all, the gender and sex used to be largely synonymous before we decided that one was, in some sense, obligate biological and the other was software programmed.
Well, that was a lexical game that was
I believe
played
in the
to
1950s.
that was played to try and bifurcate the two.
Yeah, but you can make an argument that you need a term. I don't think the gender should be purposed for that, but you could make an argument that just like abstracting male and female into top and bottom had some utility. Right?
Okay, so what do you mean when you talk about
that? Intersex is a really important category to me. I know people who are intersex, and they're screwed. They were screwed because our society had no way of dealing with them. The gender binary is so strong that somebody, through zero fault of anybody, is born with ambiguity in their genitalia and their chromosome something.
Do we have to listen to the whole thing?
Sexes or genders.
No, we don't have to listen to the whole thing. That's fine. What was your original take on that? What's your take on that?
Well, I think gender as a word shouldn't exist at all. That is what is creating a lot of problem in this whole discourse about gender identity ideology. It's just some sanitized version of being some sort of a civil rights leader or civil liberties flag bearer or something like that. It has just become this word, this buzzword right now. What he's talking about is the existence of some people. I think it's a very small percentage, 0.02%, of which only even further smaller percentage of people identify that they have this condition post puberty. So for the longest time, they live their life just like male or female, So this whole intersex population that he is claiming, and therefore him thinking that there are no two genders, is just absolute bollocks, because gender shouldn't exist. There are two sexes. There is male and there is female. And if you have DSD, you are just a male with a DSD or you're a female with a DSD. There is no in between. You can't be that person who's both male, female, or neither male, female, or all of those things at once, or depending on what yellow bracelet you're wearing, I should call you he, or pink bracelet is she, and all of those things are just absolute bollocks. And that is what gender creates, because with sex there is no ambiguity at all. It's just male or female, and anything else, it's just things that you do because you're bored or you want attention, or any of those things.
So if we removed the word gender from our lexicon, if we just waved and wanted it all went away, is that something you'd advocate?
Sounds
Or
like
am
a
I
great
mistaken? Okay, so we don't need a placeholder concept for gender, for like, Judith Butler, how someone performs their, if a guy is in a dress or in gender trouble, she writes, or if a woman is what we used to call a tomboy. So we don't need a word for that.
None of those things are genders anyway. It's just attributes that you associate to a person. It's just a personality quirk. I don't think you need a word for that at all. It's just that person. You can say that person's so and so, and that person likes to cross dress, or that person gives the appearance of a tomboy or whatever. You don't need the word gender at all. What would you define that person as anyway? If a woman is called a tomboy in her neighborhood, what gender is she? How does it matter? Her sex is female, right? And that's all you need to know. I mean, or if you need to know at all. And that she has short hair, she likes to wear certain type of clothing. It's just her personal choice and preference. It's got nothing to do with anything at all. And we should just let them be, because you attribute all these words and terminologies and then ascribe some sort of meaning to it, and therefore give some sort of some pathway towards, gearing towards a better life or something like that. So for example, if you're a tomboy, social media has a way of getting into your head to say that if you're a tomboy, you're probably trans. You're probably identifying as a man, So all of those things are complete distractions. You don't need it. She can be female and have short hair and wear shirts and be perfectly in harmony with herself and just live her life and die eventually, None of those things should matter to anybody, that you somehow need a word in the lexicon to describe them. She's just that girl. Perhaps her name's good enough. And no two women who have short hair and like to wear shirt are the same. How can you then put them all together in this bucket and call them all a certain word? How does it work? I thought we had long laughed the whole zodiac system of, we have so many billion people in this world, and you have 11 signs, 10 signs? How many signs are there? How can you put them all inside those signs and then feel like you've some agony aunt in some newspaper has figured you out somehow, because Gemini today is going to have such a bad day? How many Geminis are there in the world? How many billions of them? So is that prediction just the same for everybody? It doesn't make any sense. I find gender to be the same way.
Yeah, so that's analogous to gender. Okay, so let's get back to feminism. Can men be feminists? Excuse me.
They could have feministic values, and they could support feminist viewpoints. They could be good allies. But I wonder if men can be feminists. Men can be men and not be coming in the way of feminists, and not ruin the work done by feminists for all these years by calling themselves feminists and say that, I somehow have a bigger share in the pie because I'm doing so much more than you have. That's what's happening right now on social media anyway. All these men who think that they know it better than women do, calling themselves feminists by choice, and then somehow thinking that they're doing a better job than women are. They might be doing a better job, but you don't have to be a feminist for it. You can just be a man and you can do what you think is right. Similarly, I know many women who don't call themselves feminists either. They just do the thing that they think is right, and then they live their life, even within the gender ideology turf movement, as we are called the turfs, right? We call the trans exclusionary radical feminists. Even within the circle, there are a lot of people who constantly keep shunning this title away, right? Saying that I'm not a feminist, don't call me a turf. But they're still doing the work. They're still talking about the dangers gender ideology causes to children. It's still talking about the dangers of having men come into safe spaces that is designed specifically for women, particularly in domestic violence shelters and things like that. They do the work. These labels don't matter to them. I think similarly, if men who wish to call themselves feminists, I mean, they do, they don't, it's up to them. But I think the most important thing is for them to understand that they are men and they can support the feminist cause that women have been advocating for so long, even those that don't call themselves feminists, right? We have an agenda. We want children and women to be safe. That's the agenda. That's the goal. And men can definitely support it.
Okay, so I have two questions. Something I've been thinking about for a long time. I hope you can help me understand this. I don't understand why. So you mentioned before that about the 20 rapes a day.
Yeah, I'm speculating that number.
Well, okay, roughly. But I've read some pretty horrific stories about rape rates in India. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know that data. We can have Reed pull it up. And was that 20 roughly, like, just again roughly in all of India, or what was it?
All of India, and probably only the reported cases, right? Only the reported cases get registered in the National Crime Reports Bureau, and you can have access to reports only that are registered or recorded. You have an FIR on somebody, and first information report, like you file a case, and there's an ongoing investigation going on. A rape has been reported, but there are also rapes that don't get reported. So the number could be vastly more.
Oh, okay. My guess is it's probably correct, but let's just bracket this now. So Reed has just pulled up something that is so extraordinary. In 2022, the reported number of rape cases was 31,516, while in 2021 it was slightly higher at 31,677. The number of cases has generally been in a downward trend since 2016. Well, that's good. And then
reported cases.
Correct. So my question to you is, and we can just bracket the number now. You can find this data online, 31,516, etc. Let's say that we agree with your definition that there will be universal agreement, and you can see it on the screen there, the rape rates. Universal agreement with that. Why have Western feminists been so silent? Why have departments of gender studies and women's studies been so silent about the rape crisis in India, among other places?
I suppose all of Global South doesn't cross their mind until such time they want to use us to appropriate the existence of this group of men who call themselves hijras. They think of the Global South when they want to use us or this phenomenon of being a hijra, and in other times they can be sanctimonious about it and say that there are all these things happening in India, and then they probably add like a little extra bit to it to say that trans people must be suffering even more in India, because if things are so bad for women, then for trans women it must be even harder. Things like that. I have noticed this as a trend on Twitter. So the fact that women are getting raped doesn't seem to faze them as much as them using that information to further their agenda, to say that it must be even harder for trans kids or for trans women or some such additional nonsensical thing.
Okay, so maybe you can help me understand, because I am totally sincere when I tell you this. I'm actually attempting to understand this. This is verbal behavior. It's really true. Do you remember when ISIS was taking Yazidi slaves?
Mm-hmm.
So they were literally enslaving women, selling them and raping them by the thousands. And there are videos of this. This is not a controversial thing to say. This is not disputed by literally anybody. At the time, I was teaching at a university in Oregon, in Portland, Oregon, which was a very, very, ostensively pro woman, etc. I didn't see a single sign, a single demonstration. I saw literally nothing. Not even save the Yazidi women, or end Yazidi rape slavery, or so. Maybe you can help me understand why that is.
I think that's not
Is it the same?
I don't think it's a standalone situation where you've got to be politically correct or something like that. Even within India, there are girl children and women that are trafficked into the sex trade in thousands every day. There are all these orphanages that work as a front for a brothel. These girls have no say in it because there is nobody to come for them, literally, because they're orphans. And then there are these girls that come from the northeastern part of India for better prospects, better job, and things like that, because that part of India is just constantly riddled with conflicts, right? There's some sort of crisis going on there all the time. So they come into the metro cities aspiring to have a better life, probably bring their parents over at some point, and they just put an end to that crisis in their homeland. But when they come, they are promised certain jobs, but they are trafficked.
Hold on. I'm just hold on a second. I don't think I was clear on my question. Why is it that American academics, if we agree upon what the definition of feminism is, and I think virtually any sane person would say we want to protect women from rape and et cetera, that's to the lowest possible conceivable threshold. And we know that these horrific things exist for women, for example, in India. Why aren't they doing more to write about, talk about, etc., these problems? Is it because they're not radical feminists, they're intersectionalists? Is it because they're brown, quote unquote, and therefore what they do? Is it because they're cultural relativists? Why are they losing their fucking minds about a gender imbalance at a conference when there are actual people being trafficked, women in human rape rings?
Yeah. What I was alluding to when I was telling you about the Northeastern girls getting trafficked is Northeast is often considered as some sort of they're often neglected a lot. So even within India, there are all of these really big time feminists, sitting in the capital city, who are constantly agitated about, all of the global conflicts and things like that, often end up not saying a single thing about the crisis that's happening within India. So as an extension, it doesn't surprise me that in the West, when there are real problems going on, and these women who are in the capital city who aren't making any comment about these things are also all liberal feminists, very pro trans, very pro sex work and things like that. So as an extension, it doesn't surprise me that in the West or in the US, often these things just get buried under the rug. I think two reasons. One, access to information, right? We are on an information overload. This generation is on an information overload. There's just so much shit happening all over the world. It's very hard for you to, unless you have a personal interest and you have some friend in India, you wouldn't really know what's going on in India. Even within India, right? I'm in the South. There's very little I know what's going on in the North, so it makes sense that all of global South, where there's just so much shit going on for women and girls, it does not get past the borders.
I'm not buying that.
The things that do. No, the second point is the things that do is people, those who take any personal interest, who know that all of these things are going on. They don't want to talk about it because it's not popular. It's not going to give them that social media woke points. It's not going to make them stand out in within their circles or gain any extra social capital because it's not popular enough. Rape in India is such a boring topic right now, and women as victims is such a boring topic right now. Like it or not, that's the truth. If you talk about it, people just roll their eyes. It's as if they believe that this whole issue is over and women are somehow living in some sort of a fucking utopia right now. We are not. We know it because we are women. But for you to talk about it from a place of privilege, where you want to really feel bad that these things are going on in the global south and you want to do something about it, it is not going to get you anything. What are you gaining from it? Nothing. But if you talk about trans, if you talk about gender identity, there's a lot that you can get out of.
Okay, so it's not a luxury belief to care about Indian women getting raped because everyone would be against it. Okay, Sam is waiting to ask a question, but I think we have a very substantive disagreement about. This is our first disagreement that I've seen, and I'd like to explore it because I definitely don't think your analysis is correct, but maybe mine isn't correct either.
I just would like to also say that I don't know why Western feminists are not interested. I'm asking the same question myself. So my analysis about this is speculation.
So you're hypothesizing.
Yes, I'm hypothesizing because I'm assuming this must be the reason why. Because I would like to know why Western feminists don't give a fuck about the real problems that global South is facing too.
That's an amazingly
starting from Judith Butler.
That I cannot possibly tell you what a good question that is. That is the $1 million question. Let's ask Sam. Sam, do you have we'll bring Sam on. Sam, do you have an answer to that question? Why are Western feminists, why don't they care about rape rings and the well-being of women in the third world?
I wish I did. Maybe they're in denial.
Which is not a river in Egypt. What's your question, Sam?
I was just going to put the question that I did in the super chat, kind of expand on it a little more. Western feminism has gone through several conversations and processes to get where it is today. Do you think you can draw kind of shortcuts from that to kickstart feminist like goals in cultures and countries that aren't quite there yet?
There are some things to feel inspired by, while organizing perhaps, but we are dealing with completely different set of variables in our country. We're dealing with completely different set of problems. Even if we do take some sort of inspiration from something that has worked in the West, you can only pick parts of it about how women have been committed to the cause or, something very generic like that, something very tertiary like that. When it comes down to getting your hands dirty, things are completely different. I think no 2 days are the same when it comes to organizing in India, because today you might have 2 people. Tomorrow, they just vanish from the face of the earth. And then you're left alone. That is my story. It's just me over here who's constantly talking about this, raising alarms about the dangers of gender ideology. Someday there might be somebody in my DM saying, let's do something together. And then they're gone. They're gone. What we can aspire to have is the kind of commitment that, I don't know, British feminists have in this, where there are so many different groups and so many women and some men who are just fighting head on, against this ideology. Yeah. But there isn't anything like that over here. There isn't even enough people to put their face and their name out to publicly say that's bullshit. When you do, you get cancelled for it by the same women who once appreciated you for your filmmaking and for your activism, for your work for women and children. That's literally my story.
Wow. Does that answer your question, Sam?
Well, I was hoping you'd be a bit more hopeful, but
I'm just being practical.
She's honest.
Sort of cowardice that's gripping us.
I'm just being practical, really. But there is so much to take away from the work of Western feminists in terms of, not the actual work itself, but there is so much of courage and conviction and the persistence and the resilience and all of those things. Those are just unparalleled, right? The suffragette movement alone is just...
Yeah.
To me, the suffragette movement alone is something that I could read about over and over and just feel inspired by on a day that I'm feeling absolutely low. But then, when it comes to me closing the book, getting out and getting shit done, the kind of people that I need to meet, the kind of men that I have to handle, and whether I have any support at all is completely different. And that's when reality slaps you really hard on the face.
Thanks, Sam. We appreciate you joining
Thank
us. We appreciate your question. Thank you. So I have a question for you. I agree with you that women's suffrage and speaking out when things are difficult, that takes courage, and that's important. And the work of, I'm thinking Catherine McKinnon, or the work of some feminists early on are important. I'm trying to think of what relevant contributions feminists have made, when it's very easy to have either luxury beliefs or to sit in the ivory tower and not talk about difficult things or intentionally ignore things. So I want to go for the Women's Declaration International. Many Western feminists are very concerned about our sisters in the South. Sadly, we don't have much power in our own societies. What is your take on that? Because I'm not even going to tell you what I think about that. What's your take on that?
So WDI is fantastic. I've been associated with them for a really long time, and I am the country contact
India
for
contact.
WDI India.
Yeah.
Yes, I am. So I know and agree when they say that they are concerned about the sisters of the South. When I'm complaining about the women or the feminists that aren't speaking out enough, I'm talking about those with money and power, and those who don't espouse radical feminism as their core belief. I'm talking about women like that. I'm talking about women who believe trans women are women. I'm talking about women who believe sex work is liberating, porn is empowering, and things like that. I'm talking about women like that who, by willful ignorance, are completely sidelining the dangers and the horrors that women go through in countries like mine, what pornography puts women through in countries like mine, where a woman gets raped, a woman gets gang raped, and her name, if it is released by the media, right? The first search item on every Indian pornography website is that woman's name. Wrap your head around it. And for these people to say that pornography is empowering or pornography is giving them economic liberation or something like that, it makes me want to kill myself. Who would want to
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I wouldn't. Who would want to lay down in a bloody 6x6 room, have random men through the night come in and out? You haven't seen the sunshine in forever, and you're hooked on some drug that this pimp gives you, and you're basically just living in that room and probably dying in that room. And if you end up becoming pregnant, and if it happens to be a girl child, she ends up back into the system, because Indian law prevents you from educating a girl child from the earnings you have made by prostituting yourself. You see the catches here, so many different catches for women, right? And for these Western feminists to just arbitrarily say, or even Indian feminists for that matter, the fucking wealthy, prominent ones that have no sense of what the reality is, to say that sex work is liberating, we need to unionize them, we need to, no mention about any exit, no mention about all the dangers that the drug addiction has caused them. It's going to lead them to a much worse path, even if they are exiting from the industry. They're addicted to life. They're addicted for life. They're not going to be able to come away from it.
Okay. So
it somehow doesn't
go ahead.
strike them as doesn't somehow strike them as dangerous enough to not make such, off the cuff statements like pornography is empowering or something fucking ridiculous like that.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a profound moral bankruptcy to me. Profound. In fact, it's so profound that it literally washes away anything. And I don't really think that they do anything of use. I think they're just divisive maniacs, but anything that they would do of use, because the situation that you described is so ghastly, is so grotesque, is so inhuman, that the people who claim, the Western feminists, the feminists in the academy, the feminists who have tenure, the feminists who have jobs for life, who have wholesale ignored this problem, to me, while, on the website, either activists or some variant of activists at my last university, I think it was on 11 times, if memory serves me correctly, profess to be activists. These people are a disgrace. They're a public disgrace. And while this grotesque injustice continues, and not only in India and the other places, we have people in this column in this country who have a profound failure to reason morally. And it's disgusting. and
I
they should
agree
be
with you,
ashamed of themselves.
but yes, they should be. And also, I think much more important question that we need to be asking, or the subject that we need to be talking about, is the men that perpetrate these violence, not the women who don't condemn it. Because that's more important. If they are not committing any violence, there is no crime to condemn, or there is no crime to condone. Why are men committing these rapes? And why are we angry with the feminists who aren't talking about it? Why are men committing rapes? Let's talk about that first. I have no delusion that I'm changing the world by anything that I'm doing. In fact, I know for a fact that not a single thing is going to change for, I don't know, the next 5 generations, right? Let me just be hopelessly pathetic when I say this, but it is true. It is what I think. I have no delusions at all. Things are not going to change. Things are going to get worse. In the West, if things get better, in the global South, things have just started getting rotten, right? I know things are about to get worse. There are going to be bodies that are going to pile. I know this for a fact. But I have no delusion that whatever I'm doing, or whatever all the women that are very positively, actively working towards is doing, is going to make any substantial change, unless men stop fucking committing these crimes. Let's talk about that. And then let's be angry about the women that aren't talking about it. And more importantly, let's talk about the men who are part of the same sex class. Yeah.
Totally
who
reasonable.
don't take don't take the accountability at all.
So let's do that. So to me, there seem to be multiple issues here. The issue that's more, I would think, I'm not an expert in this, that the issue that's more difficult to change would be the cultural issue that would take more time. The issue that I would imagine would be easier to change is the Indian jurisprudence or contemporary jurisprudence. And so we have to hold, and with that, systems of law enforcement have to work in conjunction with the judiciary to punish people who are perpetrating these hideous crimes. We got a super chat here. Someone just said, the left wants to conquer the West. The moment the left wants to conquer India, they will talk about their social problems in the most toxic way possible. I'm Brazilian. I'm part of the global South. Would you want to comment on that? That's Gustav Luiz for $10.
I agree. And I think they do talk about India whenever it suits them, whenever they find it convenient, or whenever they think that is going to gain them more social capital and make them sound so worldly or something like that. I'm just sitting here in the periphery and watching all these white women or white men who seem like they know what they're talking about when they talk about the dangers that the women in India are going through, with all that rage and, fiery passion and things like that. I'm just sitting here wondering, do you even know what you're talking about? I just saying it because you just looked up something online quickly before the interview. Some might have genuine concern. I don't disagree. Don't take me for this perpetually, pessimistic person too. I mean, I know that a lot of people do care, but I'm talking about the comments that people make when they're on these shows and whenever it suits them, and on the other occasions when there is an actual issue going on. Mum's the word. Or rather, the same set of people who think India is going through a lot of bad shit don't think India is going through a lot of bad shit in situations or in ideologies that they favor. You know what I'm saying? Like in gender ideology, they will just not talk about the dangers of it in India because they are only going to constantly, wax lyrical about the Hijra community because it suits them. And they can also appear worldly and they can appear liberal and all of those things, So to their audience, they might seem as somebody who is just such a nice person, but the reality is they don't know shit. And the reality is the life of women in India continues to remain shit, whether or not this one white person makes a comment or a statement about India at all to gain their woke social points, I don't know, some oppression points, I don't know, something. Yeah. So I have stepped away from, and incidentally, I was just listening to your interview with Johan. Johan, is that how you call his name?
Johan Hari,
yeah, Johan, about the social media addiction and things like. I'm just trying to very gradually come away from all of that because I know exactly what he's talking about, and that addiction and all the toxicity is very palpable, and I know that. when you're in the mix of all of these things, like it's such a I don't know what to call it. It's a perfect storm. The social media and this need for validation, and the validation that the social media reeks, and you just get mired under this whole circle where you want this, you feel like shit, but the only way you don't feel like shit is by continuing to be in it. Now that's a fucked up circle, and I don't want to be a part of it. And take that concept and stick that in a country like India or Brazil, right? Women are separated on the basis of caste and religion, and then there are these hierarchical structures, and at the bottommost rung is a woman belonging to the lowest caste with probably no education, with probably no financial stability or anything like that. Why wouldn't she want to be a man? Even in a country like India. Now, when you're talking about hierarchies, you need to talk about a hierarchy in a country like India, because I'm saying we are separated by so many different things. I can't even begin to tell you. I can't organize as a country because we don't have a common language, and not everybody speaks English. We have lost the battle even before we've gone to the front.
Yeah,
it's a very, very bleak situation to be in, and that's why when I see all these comments being floating around and all of those things, it just really just zaps me, and I sometimes wonder, why am I even bothering with anything, because nothing's going to change. But then of course you do, you care, you do it.
But your work has reached somebody. I mean, we did research before, and I mean, again, I'm not an expert in India, and so you may be better positioned to know, or I mean, of course, you're better positioned to know, but your work has affected people and made a difference. Tell us about some of the stuff you've done. Tell us about your films and why you've done it, and then let's take a look at that and see if it has moved the needle.
Well, I've always made films centering women, and they could be fiction, they could be documentaries, but I've always centered women. And it's just something that I'm familiar with. It's just the stories that I want to highlight, because you look around, you see men everywhere, and you see stories of men everywhere. I just wanted to, not talk about men and want to talk about us, our stories, our life, our issues, and our joys and happiness and things like that. That's how it all started. But then gradually moved into a place where I wanted to not really chase this whole film festival kind of a circle where, you meet up and drink and talk about the way the world is and things like that. And rather than that, I wanted to just, do the film, put it out, let it do its business, and just come away from it and then work on the next film. That's how my agenda has always been. So I made this one film that I think has had some fruitful changes within the Indian communities, is that I made a film on workplace sexual harassment. It is called But What Was She Wearing? And I think that film,
yes,
it's long, but it has to be long because the issue is such, and it incorporates the situation of women, not just in air conditioned offices who are CEOs and elite in the workplace. Within the workplace, but also women who, I don't know, clean the toilets and pick up garbage and work in construction sites and things like that. So it's a film about all women, all kinds of women, including the caste and religion differences and things like that. So it is a robust film, and anybody who watches it cannot say that they don't understand the dangers, or they don't understand the law, or that they are not in a position to make a change within their organization, within their community, within their group. So when you watch the film, I've planted the seed. And there are some organizations that have set up internal complaints committee. They have set up these groups to investigate certain crimes, what they perceive as a sexual harassment crime, what they don't. All those things have changed. There's been a paradigm shift in the way people have perceived workplace sexual harassment on the whole. So that, I think, is like a positive thing. But again, I have no delusion that these people are going to stick with it, or that these people are going to remain fervent in their effort to make sure that women in their offices are going to have like a great time or something. I have no delusion that it's going to be an eternal thing. But of course, I have moved on to my next film, because the next topic is far more burning, and I thought it'll be interesting to work on that. Because so I work like this. I make a film, I finish it, I put it out, and I'm done. And then I pick up a next topic and I start working on it. And now I'm on another one. That's how I work. And with the Dysphoric after, but what was she wearing? I suppose it has made a positive impact in that
The rise of
many
gender
mothers have
identity.
the rise of gender identity. Yeah. Many mothers have written to me that they watched it along with their daughter who is questioning their gender, and that the film helped them understand that it is probably not a good idea to go all the way getting hormones and surgeries and things like that. So those are all good things. I mean, I wouldn't take the credit for all of it, because I'm sure the mother has talked to the daughter extensively about it, because how else would you prevent a child in the social media world to not go through transition? It's practically impossible in this time and age. But some of the mothers have written to me, and some of the young women have written to me saying that after they watched the film, they understood that this is a far more deeper issue than what meets the eye, and that the film helped them understand it, and they could introspect, and that they could choose to stop wherever they were in their transitioning stage.
Yeah, and that
so
the go ahead.
sorry,
Well,
and
a lot of people
those are little things.
Sorry,
Those are little things I think I'd like to remember on days that I'm just finding myself absolutely hopeless. Those are the things I'd like to remember, and keep moving forward, even if it is just like 1 inch per day. I would like to think of these things somehow. Otherwise, it's just
and I think
horrible.
I'm gonna ask you. Someone has a super chat, but I'm gonna ask you first, or maybe I'm just gonna tell you and not ask you. From my experience, what I found is, on Dysphoric, the negative reviews that were left. This is from a very, very, very small number of people. I mean, a ridiculously small number of people who are hyper online. They're online constantly, it's just not reality.
Yeah.
And so I wouldn't let you get that down at all. Yeah. So I'm in LA with Reed here, and yesterday 3 people at various points of my day came up to me and thanked me for my work. Guy at jiu-jitsu, guy in the street, and then a guy at the restaurant. In reality, people are nice to you and they thank you. But online, it's, and the other thing is, you don't really know how many of these people there are. There could be like, 200 people who literally this is what they do for their day job. All right, but I want you to take a look at this question. This is from M Shasti for $10. V is exaggerating. A lot has improved, but a lot needs to be done. Law enforcement has improved. Conviction rates have improved. Activists don't act. Activists don't. I think it should be
lack
act.
the improvements.
Lack the improvements. Don't get traction among people. What would your response to that be?
I'm not exaggerating at all. The population has grown. The issues have grown. The number of girl children in the country have grown. The number of children that are dropping out of schools have grown. The conviction rates might have improved, but on what percentage? Conviction rates could have been 8% before and can be 10% now. But what are the number of crimes? The crimes have gone up as well. The number of reported crimes have gone up as well. And also, how do you qualify a criminal justice system to be doing its job when there are 470,000 cases of domestic violence pending, while we have an exclusive 2009 Domestic Violence Act set aside exclusively for women, which, by the way, the trans rights activists have taken it upon themselves to be part of it. So now, while there are 470,000 cases pending, the court system is going to be burdened by this man who has these feelings, these girly feelings, to come on court and cry domestic violence. And the court is supposed to hear it and treat it under the Domestic Violence Act of 2009, which, by the way, took us decades to get. The conviction rate may have improved, but the proportion is what? How many cases have gone up? How many cases are not being reported? How many people have lost faith in the criminal justice system that they don't even bother going to the police station to file a report because the police is going to harass them first for being raped? Those things haven't changed. I agree, I concede that a lot of things have changed, in that a lot of women have achieved great things, many female CEOs, there are some women in the parliament, there have been women ministers, things like that. But when you compare it to 10 years before to now, and you take the same example, say in the US or Europe, and you make the same distinction 10 years to now, we're still far behind. I'm not exaggerating one bit. If anything, I am not shouting about this enough. I think people need to wake up and smell coffee, because the danger is just like at your door right now. 13-year-old girl, Peter, in Bombay, 13-year-old girl is telling her parents, very rich, parents are both very, very rich and working and, whatever, there is no problem. But she's glued to her phone constantly, right? She's like, I'm gender questioning, I want to be called by a male name, yada, yada. Parents were concerned. Parents took her to a therapist, hoping that the therapist would like get to the deeper issue behind it and not just, take and run with it. But the therapist said to the parents that they need to get him a breast binder. 13-year-old in Bombay, in India. This is, I think, 2022 when the parent got in touch with me.
This is
now. This is now.
Yeah. This is a neo-cultural export, a neo-colonial export on the part of the United States.
Yep.
We are colonizing.
And if I can contrast,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. If I can contrast that with the other end of the world, right, in terms of class and other privileges, there's this young woman, clearly a lesbian, not very educated, from a very remote rural part of Tamil Nadu, loves women, but doesn't understand that you can remain female and love female, because she looks around, she doesn't have any idols. She thinks if you love female, you got to be male, right? She went through the whole surgery and procedure and everything, and she's giving interviews. People are just, going gaga over her transition and how brave she is and stunning she is and all of that. When you listen to her interview, right, she has been serially molested and raped by some of her family members, and when she ran away, there was all these people that she trusted. She was raped by them, she was abused by them. She basically did not want to be female at all, and on top of it, she loves females. This is no world for a woman like that. Obviously she'll want to be a man. Who's going to report on a crime like that? I consider that a crime. Who's going to report on that? First of all, who's going to consider that a crime in the first place? When you have Indian media, Indian criminal justice system, Indian legal system, all of them fucking sold out to this bullshit. There's a Chief Justice of Madras High Court who is adamant on introducing this training manual to primary school teachers so that they can in turn teach the primary school children about how there is no concept of male or female and everything can be a gender identity. You can like this, you can like that, you can be neither, you can be both, and all of that bullshit. The same Chief Justice has let a 28-year-old man go despite this man owning and consuming child pornography. This is the same guy. And this is also the same guy who took some advice from this trans rights activist who's trans himself, who got triggered because he was studying in a medical school and they were teaching him sex dimorphism, and he was so triggered by it because he's not male or female, right? So he talked to this Chief Justice, and the Chief Justice actually ordered the government, the department concerned, to change the syllabus to remove sex dimorphism and include gender identity in it. This is the same guy. I'm not fucking exaggerating.
Oh, I believe you. I hear horror stories all the time. And I've spoken to my friend Rajiv Malhotra about what's happening in India as well. And so I would really want to thank you for your work and for bringing this up. It's just such a. I saw somebody in the comments just quickly said, "Stop blaming the U.S. Why? It's our fault. Why would I stop blaming the U.S.? Who else is exporting? Is China exporting gender? No. I mean, they may be manipulating the algorithms of TikTok to fuel it. But I'm tired of being blamed for the U.S. Well, get used to it. Be honest about it. We are the problem here. These are not the values.
I can assure you this is an import from the US, because we have very young girls who's social media influencers. This girl, she's wearing some sort of a choking thingy around her neck, and on her bare chest it says Netflix and choke. Where do you think that came from? She definitely did not learn it in Indian schools or Indian social media.
Yeah, I mean, even
her parents definitely didn't teach her that.
yeah, beyond any anecdotes or a sea of anecdotes that the book Snakes in the Ganga defines that, explains that in truly meticulous detail. I think it's like 800 pages or something. Okay, so do we have any other? Yeah, sure. The EU is also promoting it 100%. Yeah, but where did they get that from? I suppose if you go back far enough, you could say they got it from French postmodernists, but
postmodernists, my goodness, postmodernists. Yes, it's them. It's all them. Queer theory is from them, and it's all
right. And cynical theories. Helen Pluckrose was the chief author of that. She explains how that metastasized out to applied postmodernism, etc. Okay, if you have any super chats, now's the time. And if you have any questions for V, this is a great time to do that. But before we do that, just a couple more quick questions. Where can people find you if they want to watch your films, or where can people find you?
My production company's name is quirky. It's Lime Soda Films, and my website is my name, vaishnavisundar.com. So any and all information or anything that I'm up to, I kind of dump it on my site. So anything that you wish to know, you can find out from those websites. And on social media, I'm just Vaishax, Vaishax. That was me a few years ago trying to be all modern and cool. So
looks good. Looks good. All right.
So that's my Twitter.
Fantastic.
So you can.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and we got your read. We got your Twitter on there. All right. Well, great. If we got no super chats, stick around. I'd like to maybe if I go on the Indian prison tour, I can visit you. You're in the South, right?
I'm in the very South.
Is that right? Okay. All right. Well, maybe our paths will cross. We can do a live stream down there. Well, thank you so much for your work. Thank you for bringing attention to these issues. We really appreciate it, and the women and girls of the world appreciate it. So thank you. All right. Hang around, and we'll see everybody. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for watching. Everything we do is under the umbrella of the National Progress Alliance, nationalprogressalliance.org. It's a nonprofit, independent 501c3. Your generous donations keep us going and keep fueling content like this. So please help us out. Make a donation. We very much appreciate it. Thank you.